In this video, I'm talking about 7 Asperger's symptoms that you didn't know were actually traits. Coming up. Hey guys, welcome back to the Asper world. I'm Dan. I have Asperger Syndrome, ADHD, OCD and dyslexia. I make weekly videos on this type of content, so if you're new around here and you want to learn more, remember to hit that subscribe button by hitting the notification bell so you don't miss out on any videos that I post. Also, if you're watching over on Facebook, make sure to give this page a like and a follow so you see daily videos from me. So in this video, I'm talking about some traits that people don't often associate with Asperger Syndrome that you probably didn't even know about, and stick by to the end of the video to see the whole list. Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Super pumped to be here, super awesome to have all you guys in this video. If you want to leave me a comment on where you're watching from in the comment section below, that would be super awesome. I read and respond to every single comment I get. Okay guys, so at the beginning of every single video, I always read out comments from you guys that you've sent me over on Instagram. So if you want to be featured in a video just like this, head over to Instagram, give me a follow so you see when I ask you to ask me questions on the stories, and you may be in a video just like this. So if you just head over to my Instagram page and give me a follow, link is in the description below or on the top part here, that would be super awesome. Okay, so the first question I'm going to read out here today is from Megan A. Parker, and they said, what are some of the resources out there for autism? Hashtag fellow Aspie. Some of the resources for autism would be, there's some great websites. The National Autistic Society's website, which is just autism.org, they have a fantastic range of amazing downloads, information, PDFs, all kinds of stuff. They even run courses, if you sign up for one of the courses, where they teach people different things about autism, etc. Also, some of the best resources are probably going to be from your local health board. So if you go to like your doctor or your mental health clinic, neurological kind of clinics, and ask them for information on autism, they should be able to point you in the direction of therapies. So this is another access to help. Therapies like counseling, psychological intervention, and things like occupational therapy will definitely help. Okay, so T.O. Sling had said, would you even touch on OCD as in things you use to help yourself with it? Yes, absolutely. I do have OCD, like I said in the start of this video, and I want to do more videos on that. I don't think I've done any videos on OCD before, so they are coming. I've just been trying to plan out which is the best way to do this. So the last question is from Catherine the Fox, and they said, what is my favorite Pokemon? I guess my favorite Pokemon is Snorlax, and I do like Onyx, but Snorlax is probably my favorite Pokemon. So, jumping back into this video from the questions. So thank you for all the questions, super awesome. Okay guys, so, I'm repping my merch today. This is a Keep Being Awesome merch. If you guys are interested in any merch from me, I'll try and put some on the screen here. The link is in the description of this video, but also underneath this video on YouTube, you'll see a carousel of all my merch. So if you're interested in buying t-shirts, supporting this channel, being part of the superhero squad, yeah, you can get some merch. So guys, let's get into it. So Asperger symptoms that are like kind of not just uncommon, just things that people wouldn't normally associate as being something for Asperger syndrome. Okay, so the first one is repetitive behavior, and you might be like, oh Dan, everybody knows that people on the autism spectrum love repetitive behavior because they love routines, and routines are everything, right? Well, there are some people who have be able to create coping mechanisms for other things, like, you know, they may have an autism spectrum condition, but they may not show that because they have made coping mechanisms, and they may mask, and they may do all these things. So this video is just a kind of just an interesting video to show insight to things that you may have like skipped over in people's lives. So one of them is repetitive behavior. Now repetitive behavior could be down to things like if someone likes to make the same thing to eat every single day, and then they get up, they go to work, they come home for lunch, and then they have the same thing every single day. Then they come home from work at the end of the day, and then they maybe play about with like RC racing cars, and then they, you know, go upstairs, watch their favorite show, read the same newspaper, and then they go to bed. And they do that same thing every single day. Now this repetitive behavior is something that it becomes kind of almost not obsessive, but it's something that they rely on. And so when that is taken away from them, or there's a change in that routine, they may become distressed, they may feel like overwhelmed, and this is a huge one. This is like autism 101, but in terms of people who may not already be diagnosed, you know, this kind of behavior is super interesting. So repetitive behavior is something that I was always doing before I was diagnosed that I didn't realize was associated with an autism spectrum condition, which I find just fascinating. Okay, so number 2 is something that we don't really talk about a lot, and they're tics. Now tics are a little bit different to stims. So when people refer to autism and they talk about stimming is like self-stimulation stimulatory behavior, which could be like rocking in a chair or flapping of hands, or using like fidget spinners or something to kind of soothe themselves, and having kind of like just sensory stimuli basically from things that are sensory pleasing. Now, in terms of tics are involuntary like flicks or like small things that happen when you don't realize are happening. So in Tourette syndrome, tics are very commonly associated with like aggressive shouting, or they may use swear words, or they cuss or something like that, or they make weird noises, and those typically are tics. That's what we know as tics. But with Asperger syndrome, you can have tics, and for instance, one of my tics is I hit my chest and I go like this, and I hit my chest. I don't know why I do it. Just kind of like I strain myself, and I like push my shoulders back, and I strain, and I put my chest like this. Sometimes it turns into a stim where I like rock my arms back, but usually it's a tic, and then I cough and I hit my chest all the time. Happens all the time. And this tic, I've had this tic for years and years and years, and it was made apparent to me when we were going through the diagnosis process. My girlfriend had to like write a list of things to show with the doctor. Why do you think, what evidence would you say? What kind of unusual quirks does Dan have that typically neurotypical people wouldn't have? And this was one of them. Okay, so number 3 is antisocial behavior. Now, antisocial behavior, and I don't mean this in the fact that you're a yob and you go outside with like alcohol cans and shout at people. That's not like the antisocial behavior I'm trying to talk about. Antisocial behavior in the way where you are more likely to spend your afternoon in a library researching something than going out with friends and having like a fun time in a bar, or going to play sports or something like that. Or you're really obsessed with video gaming and you're not really bothered about friends as much as you are your research topic or your gaming that you're into. Now, this type of thing comes from a mixture of anxiety and also a mixture of social misunderstanding. So people with an autism spectrum condition have a slightly different understanding of how to communicate socially with other people. So this makes it difficult for them. So it could lead to them wanting to be more reclusive and be in their home. And also they enjoy the secludedness of just a quiet time, having that time to just chill out and not really have to worry about noise and smells and sounds and other stimuli that could really trigger you. So if you're a person who is on the spectrum and you enjoy that that reclusiveness, that's awesome. I absolutely love it. I'd love to just sit down and research something and go out to a party. That's my personal one. So again, this is kind of a trait where you'd see in somebody, and again in myself when I was going through my diagnosis process, I was going through this, and my girlfriend was like, okay, well, Dan doesn't really like to go anyway. He loves to just do his own thing in his room, or when I was at my parents' house, and that's kind of very interesting. And again, a super top one that people don't really talk about when we talk about Asperger's like traits and things like that. Okay, so number 4 is one of my personal favorites. This one is fussy eating. Now, fussy eating can overlap with repetitive behavior. So for instance, when I was a child, I was super fussy eating. Well, I am super fussy eating anyway, but when I was really young, my parents had a hard time trying to find food that I really liked, but I really liked one type of food, which is like roast vegetables with gravy and stuff like that. And I just wanted that all the time. And so my mum actually like prepped meals, like made loads of them, and like we froze some, and then I'd have that every single day. And it was one of like the best experiences of my life, was having that same meal every single day, and I loved it. Now, having fussiness with food is super interesting because it relates directly to something called sensory processing disorder. Now, if you want to learn about sensory processing disorder, I will leave a link to that video that I made on that right above here in a card, so you guys can actually see that video on sensory processing disorder and how sensory processing disorder can impact your life and how it co-occurs comorbidly with autism. Now, when someone is fussy with their food through textures or smells or temperatures, all of this stuff is down to how their body is perceiving the sensory input from this thing. Now, this again is a super diagnostic factor when you're looking at diagnosing criteria for people on the spectrum, and it's super interesting. I found it just fascinating. Okay guys, so number 5 is depression. Okay, so this is something that we don't really talk about a lot, but very commonly occurring, and mostly all of the time occurring with Asperger syndrome, is that when people have Asperger syndrome, they do suffer from depression. Unfortunately, it's something that happens because of the way that the autistic brain interacts with the world around them. They are susceptible to things like depression and high anxiety and things like that, and stress and all kinds of stuff. I mean, for me personally, I've had like alopecia, my hair like falling out in different places, and I've had depression, been on antidepressants, but it's so common that people just they they treat it and they don't really say, oh goodness, yeah, this is another causing factor that is a comorbid, a co-occurring condition within an autism spectrum diagnosis. So if you're somebody you know, who has a lot of these traits going on, like I was, and also had like depression, this again leads to a more strong and successful diagnosis of Asperger syndrome, or it now is autism spectrum disorder. And I explained this in a video like last week, so if you want to check that video out, please go and check it out in the link in the card up here. So that is something to always remember, that depression strikes people with autism, and it's like almost like a really obvious trait, if that makes sense. Okay, so number 6 is something that, like, this is super interesting. Now, number 6 is short-term memory loss. Now, short-term memory loss is simply something that's very, very common with autism. Now, when you have, you know, you're on the spectrum and you're having issues with short-term memory, but you have a great long-term memory. Like, for instance, I can remember most of the stuff that happened to me all of my life, like going through the 90s, growing up, you know, even when I was a little kid, growing up, and it's even conversations I have with people that are the most like bizarre kind of like just niche conversations that you probably wouldn't even think of. I remember pretty much every single thing about those, and almost like in picture format. So my mind, it's in a picture, but okay, it's black and white to an extent because I don't really remember things that well in color, but it is picture format and I can definitely pick out the details, and I love that. But if I go walk into the house and my mum's like, hey, can you go to the kitchen and get me that cup? I'll like walk into the kitchen and be like, instantly, I have no idea what I'm doing. I just forget instantly. Or if somebody says to me, this is the worst one, if some people say, hey Dan, on the 12th of this date you need to go here. Look, if I don't write that down and get Siri on my iPhone to tell me when that is going to occur, it's not going to happen, and I just absolutely fail at it. And this is really common with the way the autistic brain processes information. It will start filtering the information into the long-term memory bank, but in the short term it just forgets that information, and it's quite clumsy with it, and it's super interesting. And that's a huge trait of an autism spectrum condition, and something that we should always be aware of when dealing with new diagnosis or looking at yourself. Even if you're already diagnosed, there is help available for building short-term memory resilience, and like, you know, helping overcome issues that it may have. Like, I use different types of apps, and maybe I'll do an app video. So if you want to see a video on apps, then please make sure you comment saying, Dan, do a video on app that can help short-term memory loss. Okay guys, so number 7, and this is the final one, is stuttering, right? This is super interesting. Stuttering is a trait that I had all my life growing up until I was about 15 or 16. I do stutter sometimes still, but I've overcome that because I've been more conscious about it. Now, you know, stuttering or having a stammer is when you kind of like, you know, you can't get the word out and you stutter a little bit. Now, when I was a kid, this was really bad, and my brother used to make fun of me and all this kind of stuff because, you know, older siblings are horrible sometimes. And yeah, the stutter was a huge one for me because, like, I didn't really know what was going on. It kind of gets worse when I'm under pressure or I'm under stress. It gets worse when I'm trying to do things or I'm flustered. And it was really, really strong when I was a kid. I would say up until I was about 15, it was super bad, and it stopped me doing a lot of things. It kind of gave me some issues with like wanting to go out and actually make friends and socialize, along with all the other stuff that comes with an autism spectrum diagnosis. But in terms of having a stutter, this is another key indicator that an autism spectrum condition does come with a stutter, because of simple things like it is how your brain is communicating. Your brain's running a bit faster than your mouth can get out, and it can cause all kinds of you know, neurological conditional issues that come out comorbidly with it, and stuttering is definitely one of those. Okay guys, number 8, and this is, I don't normally do this, but this is like a bonus one for you. I want to give you guys number 8. So number 8 for me is obsessive interest. Like, I feel like this is something that's missed a lot of the time, because they look for things like, you know, do they socialize, can they communicate, do people make eye contact? These are how they categorize, you know, autism diagnostic at a very basic level. I'm not talking about this is like the clinical kind of academic version. I'm just saying that this is like typically how people kind of identify autism in people. But one of the things that I think is greatly missed is the obsessional interest and the obsessive interest of some people. That they dive directly into something and they're like, wow, this is amazing, and they just dive straight in and they just love the subject, that they just get completely overwhelmed with, and they'll buy everything to know on that subject. They'll read about it, they'll visit that place of their subject interest, and it becomes an obsession, and then they'll just quit that and then go into another obsession. And this is very, very common, that they'll have one obsession and then move on to another obsession, and so this is very, very common, and I think this is something that we all should take note of as well when an autism spectrum condition, and it should always be encouraged, because having that knowledge base could lead to a really good career, maybe. I don't know. Guys, if you were loving this video, I'd love to know how you thought about it, so please do leave me a comment. Also, give this video a like and a thumbs up if you're really enjoying this video, and share it if you believe this video video can help somebody else. So thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you next time, guys. Peace. Hey, if you've managed to make it this far to the end of the video, kudos to you. Give us a thumbs up.